Who likes JD Vance? Who likes Marco Rubio? Sounds like a good ticket. Donald Trump said those words at a Rose Garden dinner inside the White House, polling his guests on who should succeed him as President of the United States. Both names drew strong applause, almost equal. Trump said the two men running together would make a perfect ticket. Then he looked at the room and added one sentence that stopped everything. That does not mean you have my endorsement under any circumstance. JD Vance is the sitting Vice President of the United States. He is constitutionally one heartbeat from the presidency. He is the man Trump chose to be his running mate. And the man he chose to be his running mate just watched the President of the United States publicly float his possible replacement at a dinner inside the building where they both work. This is the story that Washington has been watching quietly for months, and that is now erupting into the open in ways that cannot be easily explained away. The Trump-Vance relationship is under more pressure than at any point since January 20, 2025, and the fault lines between them are not manufactured by the media. They are documented, quoted, and on the record. The Iran war, the Pope, the 2028 succession race, the Situation Room exclusions, the public signals from Trump himself. All of it has been building for months, and right now it is boiling over. Let's go through every layer of this story because there are more layers than most people realize. Start at the beginning of the Iran war because that is where the tension became officially acknowledged. On March 9th, Trump held a news conference at his Doral Golf Club in Florida. A reporter asked about the relationship between Trump and Vance on the Iran war decision. Trump's answer was one of the most remarkable things a sitting president has said about his own vice president on the record. He said Vance was philosophically a little bit different than me. He said he thought Vance was maybe less enthusiastic about going, but was quite enthusiastic once the decision was made. He downplayed any disagreement, but the words were already out. The vice president of the United States was not fully enthusiastic about the biggest foreign policy decision of the Trump second term. Trump said so himself, out loud, at a press conference. Now there is a deeply ironic twist inside this story that has been almost completely underreported, because while Trump said publicly that Vance was less enthusiastic about the Iran war, multiple separate news reports, corroborated by sources inside and close to the administration, painted a very different picture of what actually happened in the months before the strikes. According to those reports, it was Vance who privately persuaded Trump to go bigger and faster against Iran, overcoming his own previously stated anti-interventionist instincts to argue for an aggressive military posture that would decapitate Iran's nuclear leadership. He reportedly told Trump to go big and go fast. So you have a situation where Trump is telling the public that Vance was less enthusiastic, while internal reporting says Vance actively helped push Trump toward a more aggressive Iran strategy. That contradiction is not a minor discrepancy. It is a window into the political calculations both men are making simultaneously. Trump's framing gives Vance some distance from a war that is deeply unpopular with the America First base. Vance's actual behind-the-scenes role, if the reports are accurate, shows a vice president making significant strategic decisions that he may now be trying to quietly distance himself from, as the war's economic and political costs pile up. And those costs are real. The Iran war has driven gas prices up more than 50% from a year ago. Inflation has hit a 3-year high. Trump's approval on the economy is at 29%. His approval on inflation is at 24%. The war that Vance reportedly helped push for is the single biggest driver of the economic pain that is now destroying Trump's poll numbers and threatening the Republican House and Senate majorities heading into November. Vance has been caught in what USA Today described as a rock and a hard place. His entire political identity before becoming vice president was built on America First non-interventionism. He was one of the most consistent voices on the right, warning against foreign military entanglements. The Iran war puts that identity in direct conflict with his loyalty to Trump and his ambitions for 2028. And Trump himself publicly acknowledged the philosophical gap between them on camera. The tension deepened in ways that went beyond policy disagreement. Vance was notably absent from a January photograph of Trump and senior officials watching the operation to capture Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro unfold in real time. The photo showed Trump, Rubio, Hegseth, CIA Director Ratcliffe, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and other senior officials watching the operation. Vance was not there. The White House gave no explanation. The image circulated widely online and started questions about whether Vance was being frozen out of key national security moments. Then came the Islamabad episode in April. as Iran peace talks were being organized in Pakistan, it was widely reported that Vance would lead the U.S. delegation, the highest-level meeting between the U.S. and Iran since 1979. Vance was briefed, preparations were underway, and then Trump went on television and said Vance might not be going because of security concerns. The Secret Service could not provide adequate protection on 24 hours' notice. Kushner and Witkoff would go instead. Vance later did travel to Islamabad and led talks there, but the episode generated enormous coverage about whether Trump had pulled his own vice president out of a historic diplomatic moment, and whether security concerns were the real reason or a convenient explanation. The IBT Times reported separately that Trump had removed Vance from Iran peace negotiations and replaced him with Kushner, citing security concerns, while other outlets questioned whether the real driver was something else entirely. The episode fed a narrative of a vice president being sidelined at critical moments. The White House denied that framing. And then came the Pope. JD Vance is a devout Catholic convert. He has spoken publicly and emotionally about how his Catholic faith transformed his life. He has a book called Communion coming out in June that is a 304-page account of that spiritual journey. And the current Pope, Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope in history, has been one of the most vocal international critics of the Iran war, of Trump's immigration enforcement, and of the administration's foreign policy broadly. When Trump attacked Leo publicly on Truth Social, calling him terrible, weak, and bad for the church, saying he did not want a pope who criticizes the American president, Vance was put in an impossible position. He's a Catholic, Leo is his pope, and his boss just attacked his pope on social media. Vance sided publicly with Trump. He went on Fox News and said the Vatican should stick to matters of morality and let the president dictate American public policy. He said at a Turning Point USA event that the Pope should be careful when he talks about matters of theology. Catholic theologians and scholars immediately noted the irony. Vance had previously praised Pope John Paul II for using his moral authority to oppose the Iraq War. Now he was telling the sitting pope to stay in his lane when that pope opposed the Iran War. Professor Massimo Faglioli at Villanova, one of the leading Catholic theologians in the country, said Vance had sold out his own integralist argument. He said you cannot claim to be a Catholic integralist, someone who believes Catholic moral teaching should inform public life, and then tell the Pope to be quiet about matters of public life. A YouGov poll found 48% of Americans sided with Leo on Iran versus 28% who sided with Trump and Vance. Among independents, it was 50% Leo versus 15% Trump. Among American Catholics, Vance's own community, the numbers were similarly uncomfortable for the administration. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of the 2028 succession race that both men are pretending does not exist, but that everyone in Washington is watching in real time. The White House press briefing room has, in Reuters' words, become an informal audition stage this month, as both Vance and Rubio take turns at the podium while Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is on maternity leave. Vance briefed in mid-May. Rubio briefed 2 weeks before him. Trump watched. Trump polled the room. Trump said Vance and Rubio running together would make a perfect ticket, and then explicitly withheld his endorsement of either. Sources told the Washington Post that Vance's assumed status as heir to the MAGA crown is increasingly uncertain. Reports surfaced in March that Vance had hinted to allies he might skip the 2028 race entirely. Those reports were denied, but they circulated, and the political logic behind them is not hard to understand. Vance built his MAGA credibility on America First non-interventionism. The Iran war, which he reportedly helped enable internally as he was positioned as less enthusiastic publicly, has fractured exactly the base he needs for 2028. Tucker Carlson, who has more influence over young MAGA voters than almost any other media figure, has been one of the most vocal opponents of the Iran war. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Steve Bannon, Candace Owens, all people whose support Vance would need in a 2028 primary. all of them turned against the Iran war, and Vance, trapped between his loyalty to Trump and his own political future, has been navigating that minefield with increasing visible strain. When a reporter asked Vance directly at a press conference about his previous anti-interventionist statements and how they squared with the Iran war, Vance snapped, "I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president." That is not the answer of a man who is comfortable. That is the answer of a man who knows the wedge is already there and is furious that someone is pointing at it. So here is where the Trump-Vance relationship actually stands right now. They are not at war. They are not on the verge of a public rupture. Vance is continuing to defend Trump loyally in every public appearance. He called Trump's second-term record extraordinary. He said he's proud to stand beside him. The official position is unity and partnership. But underneath that official position, the documented record shows a vice president who was publicly described by his own president as less enthusiastic about the administration's biggest decision, a vice president missing from key national security photographs, a vice president caught between his Catholic faith and his boss's war with the Pope, a vice president whose 2028 path is being complicated by a war he may have helped engineer, a vice president watching his president publicly float his replacement at a White House dinner while pointedly withholding the one thing that matters, an endorsement. Trump said of Vance and Rubio, "That does not mean you have my endorsement under any circumstance." That sentence is doing a lot of work right now inside Washington because Trump's endorsement is the single most valuable asset in Republican politics. It is what ended Massey's career. It is what ended Cassidy's career. It is what is about to determine Cornyn's fate. And Trump just told the room that neither his vice president nor his Secretary of State has it. Whether that was a joke, a power play, a deliberate signal, or a genuine uncertainty about who he wants as his successor, nobody outside the Oval Office knows for certain, but the people inside Republican politics are reading it very carefully. So here is the debate America needs to have right now. Is what we are seeing between Trump and Vance real tension that is building towards something significant, or is it the normal friction inside any administration, amplified by the political pressure of an unpopular war and a looming midterm? And here is the more explosive question underneath all of it. If Trump decides Vance is not his guy for 2028, and the choice becomes Vance versus Rubio for the MAGA crown, which direction does the movement go? Drop your answer below.